Warm-up activity. Look at these two lists of sentences. What is similar among them? I'm going to be showing you two different lists of sentences, and each list has three separate sentences. So you're going to be comparing the three sentences together and try to guess what's being targeted in the three sentences. Rita heard the last piece of pie calling her name. The approaching car's headlights winked at me. The camera loves her since she is so pretty. So compare the three sentences. What do you think is similar among them? What is common between the sentences? Look at the verbs of these sentences if you cannot guess. The last piece of pie, calling. The car's headlights winked. The camera loves. Can these objects do these actions? Hint, it is a type of figure of speech. Do you think that the writer of these sentences means it literally? Let's look at the other three sentences, and here there is another figure of speech being targeted, different than the first. This washing machine is driving me nuts. Hold your horses, I still need 10 minutes to get ready. I know you were there yesterday, spill the beans. Look at the underlined words and phrases. Which figure of speech do you think is being targeted here? Let's see if you've guessed them right. Here are our learning outcomes for this week. Identify the two figures of speech in text, personification and idiom. And determine the figurative meaning behind the personification and idiom phrases. Because we said that the writers of personification and idiom and figures of speech in general don't mean the phrases literally, they mean them figuratively. So we're going to try to determine what their figurative meanings might be. Before we start with personification and idiom, let's just review the literary devices that we learned last week. Number one is simile. By definition, a simile is a figure of speech that compares two different things using the words like or as. For example, the sun was like a yellow marble in the sky. A metaphor is a figure of speech that is used to make a comparison between two things that aren't alike but do have something in common. A metaphor's comparison is more indirect, usually made by stating something is something else. All the world is a stage. So if we want to convert the previous simile into a metaphor, we would say, the sun was a yellow marble in the sky. Just delete the like or as. And the third literary device we learned last week is symbolism. It is the practice or art of using an object or a word to represent an abstract idea. For example, snow often comes with a message of calmness or purity. What is common between these three literary devices? They all do not mean literally, and they are figures of speech. Now that we've revised the three figures of speech of last week, let's learn the two new figures of speech. Number one is personification. By definition, personification is a figure of speech in which a thing, an idea or an animal, is given human attributes or characteristics. The non-human objects are portrayed in such a way that we feel they have the ability to act like human beings. For example, when we say the sky weeps, we are giving the sky the ability to cry, which is a human quality. Thus, we can say that the sky has been personified. Let's look at some examples. The shadow of the moon danced on the lake. The flowers were blooming and the bees kissed them every now and then. The flood raged over the entire village. Here, raged is a human emotion. The full moon peeped through partial clouds. His car suffered a severe stroke in the middle of the road and refused to move forward. So all of these verbs and actions that you can see are human qualifications and attributes that cannot be used for objects and animals. But if we wish to personify them to make the sentence more beautiful, we use them with objects and animals. Now it is your turn to try out personification. Our first example is the Green Gables letters from this book by L.M. Montgomery. I hiked me away to the woods, away back into the sun-washed alleys carpeted with fallen gold and glades where the moss is green and vivid yet. The woods are getting ready to sleep. They are not yet asleep, but they are disturbing and having all sorts of little bedtime conferences and whisperings and goodnights. So take your time, you may pause the video here and think about where objects or things are being personified. The little activity in the forest has been beautifully personified as the forest is getting ready to sleep, busy at bedtime, chatting and wishing good nights, all of which are human customs. I hope you got that one right. Let's see at the second example. We've read this one before. I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud by William Wordsworth. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. So, can you identify the personification here in this verse? The fourth line says, a host of golden daffodils, and the fifth line has those flowers fluttering and dancing in the breeze, all of which are human customs. Let's look at what the functions of personifications are. It adds clarity to expressions as we always look at the world from a human perspective. Writers and poets rely on personification to bring inanimate things to life because it is easier for us to relate to something that is human or which possesses human traits. The second literary device we'll be covering today is idiom. By definition, the term idiom refers to a set of expressions or a phrase comprising two or more words. The expression is not interpreted literally. The phrase is understood to mean something quite different from what individual words of the phrase mean. Moreover, idioms vary in different cultures and countries. Let's look at some examples. Put yourself together. It means to joke with someone. So far, so good. It means things are going well so far. Speak of the devil. The person we were just talking about showed up. Break the ice. Makes people feel more comfortable. To rain on someone's parade means to spoil something. Now it's your turn to try idiom. Identify the idioms in the following sentences and predict what they might mean. You can pause the video here and practice. Getting fired turned out to be a blessing in disguise. So here, the idiom is blessing in disguise, and it means getting fired, which is normally a negative event, turns out to be a good thing. Number 2, I'm going to call it a night. The idiom here is calling it a night. It means that I'm going to bed. Would you cut me some slack? The idiom here is cut me some slack. It means don't be so hard on me. Pull yourself together, man. The idiom here is pull yourself together. It means calm down. I'm feeling under the weather. Under the weather, it means I'm feeling sick. Why do we use idioms, or why do writers use a lot of idioms? The purpose behind this vast use of idioms is to elaborate their language, to make it richer and spicier, and to help writers in conveying subtle meanings to the audience. And finally, introduction to the lesson. This week we will be reading the poem The Blade and the Axe. And now that you're all equipped with all the literary devices that you need for this week, you are all ready to dive into the comprehension. Happy reading!